find a comfortable seat. And as we begin our practice, feel supported by the surface that your body is resting upon, and allow your eyes to remain open or gently close. Take a deep breath, settle into a position that feels just right. Whatever you experience is perfect, just as it is. Now simply rest at ease and follow the sound of my voice. Bring your attention to your senses. Notice the taste in your mouth, sounds around you, smells, images or colors behind your eyelids, the touch of the air on your skin, your senses open and alive. Allow your heartfelt desire to arise, something that you wish for more than anything else in life. This may be a desire for yourself, for another, or for the world around you. Allow your heartfelt desire to rise as an accomplished fact in this very moment, affirming your heartfelt desire with your entire body. Become aware of the body breathing itself naturally and rhythmically. In-breath, abdomen rising. Out-breath, abdomen releasing. No need to change anything, the body breathing itself. And begin counting each breath silently from 7 to 1 in the following manner. In-breath, abdomen rising, 7. Out-breath, abdomen releasing, 7. In-breath, abdomen rising, 6. Out-breath, abdomen releasing, 6. Continue to count and breathe in your body's own natural rhythm. Breathing, counting, and being with everything just as it is. Now let go of counting with no need to reach 1, and be aware of the flows of sensation throughout the body. The body a field of radiant sensation. Now, while gently holding the breath at the top of an inhalation, move your attention into the left side of your body. And while exhaling and inhaling, welcome sensation throughout the left side of the body. Now, while again holding the breath at the top of an inhalation, move your attention into the right side of the body. And exhale and inhale and welcome sensation throughout the right side of the body. And when you are ready, begin to alternate from one side to the other. Inhaling on one side, holding the breath at the top of the inhalation, and then exhaling down the other side. And inhaling from that side, holding the breath at the top of the inhalation, and exhale down the other side. Continue to move from one side to the other in your own breathing rhythm, giving time during retention of the breath for sensation to completely shift from one side of the body to the other. And when you're ready, sense the entire body simultaneously. And then return to your own breathing rhythm. Staying for a moment in this comfortable place that you have created for yourself. Honoring the body, the mind, and the spirit. And when you're ready, you can begin to transition to your alert and wide awake state. Opening your eyes, noticing the room around you. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Leslie. So, as most of you know, I've been inviting people that have been part of my journey as teachers and guides during my spiritual path. And Sajit and I, look back. I was like, well, when do we start? When do we start this? And we look back, and she's been reading and coaching me around with my astrology since 2013. And I got to meet her, of course, in person when she lived in Asheville right before she left. And then since then, we've done virtual calls and readings. And so I'm so honored. And it just so happened that when I scheduled her on this date, that it was the day before Mars goes retrograde. That was not intentional, but it worked out just perfectly. And so I'm so honored to have her on this call and for her to share her wisdom around the retrograde, the Mars retrograde, and the other items that she is wanting to share tonight. So, Sajit, I welcome you around the fire.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with y'all. I live in Taos, New Mexico now, but I still like to say y'all because it's fun to say. So welcome, everybody. And I'm going to be doing a combination of talking, sharing information, and also inviting your questions. And I won't just wait till the end for questions. I think I'll kind of pause at certain points as we go along and give some space for questions. So do hold your questions until one of those times, but know that you're not going to have to wait till the very end. And I also will be guiding you through some somatic or body-oriented movement experiences. I have a background as a dance movement therapist, which is a form of somatic-based psychotherapy. And one of my newest passions is that now that everybody's doing everything on Zoom and everything's virtual, I feel like it's more important than ever to learn how to stay in our bodies and stay connected, to our body sensations and our physical embodied experience at the same time that we're connecting through this virtual cyberspace or whatever it is that seems to connect us through the ethers to each other, so that we can have the and both, where we're really connected to ourselves and our bodies and connected to each other in this kind of beyond the body way. So I'll encourage us at certain times to really come into our bodies to experience the Mars energy. What is that like in the body? Because Mars is a very physical kind of an energy. This Mars retrograde is in the sign of Aries, and Mars is the planet that is associated with Aries. So in a way, it's kind of like a double, like the energy gets doubled because it's the planet in its natural sign. Mars and Aries like just naturally fit together and fire each other up. The planet Mars is of the fire element, and the sign of Aries is the fire element. And so it's interesting that we're circled around the fire here. So I want to keep remembering, and Leah, you know, as much as you want to like pop in and help us to remember that we are around a fire and that we're joining the fire element within each of us, with each other, and with that central fire that's here in the middle of our virtual fire circle. And in astrology, there's three different signs of the zodiac that are in the fire element, and each of them is a different form of fire. I'm not going to go through each of those fire signs, but I just want to let you know that the form of fire that Aries is like a spark. It's that initial, you know, that flame that gets things going. So Mars and Aries are both about getting things started. It initiates things, it gets things going, it activates things. So, you know, fire is hot and it moves, like the fire element moves upwards like this, you know, whereas water flows downwards, fire goes up. And so it has heat, it has a speed to it, it tends to be fast, quick, and activating. So when Mars in Aries is moving forward, there's a lot of energy for moving us forward. It's like that inner fire, that inner flame, that inner spark is like, yeah, this is what I want, and this is what I need, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I'm motivated to do, and I'm gonna go and do it. That's Mars in Aries when it's forward, when it's going direct, which is most of the time. Mercury only goes retrograde about every 2 years. And just know that you're welcome to take notes tonight. Of course, you know, you're free to take notes. And I have created a handout that I'll be happy to send you. So at the end, I'll share with you that I have an offer for you. And that offer includes that you can get the handout from me, and you can get the special offer on working with me. And you'll also get my newsletter. So if you want to take notes, you can, and a lot of this stuff is in the handout, especially this like really very didactic information that I'm starting off with. So Mars is about to turn retrograde, and what that means is that the planets never really ever move backwards, but it's from our perspective here on Earth, it looks like Mars starts going backwards or in the opposite direction that it usually goes in. So because astrology is based on our human experience here on Earth, looking out, you know, into the sky and seeing the planets and the stars from Earth being like the center, it's Earth-centric. And so when Mars in relationship to the Earth seems to be moving backwards, that's what retrograde motion means. And when it's in retrograde, or when it's moving backwards in our illusion of things, we're not so easily able to access that fiery Mars energy. So I'd love to share a little story of something that happened to me just today that's, I think, a perfect example of how you might experience Mars retrograde. So I was planning to go on a camping trip, and the plan was to leave early tomorrow morning and come back on Saturday night. Well, the weather here has turned brutally cold. It's supposed to snow, like where I was planning to go in Colorado. It's predicted 7 inches of snow today, and then more snow tomorrow, and then rain the next day, and freezing cold every night. And so then I started scrambling to try to put together a different plan, and okay, let's go south instead of north, and let's figure out where's the weather, you know, not snowy and rainy, and nothing was coming together. And I felt like I had this feeling in my body this morning when I was trying to work out a new plan. I had this feeling like I was trying so hard to push, and I was like trying to push, and I was meeting so much resistance. And all of a sudden, it's like I got it from the feeling in my body was like, no, I need to let go. It's like you can't push the river. And when Mars is retrograde, it's not a time to try to push through. If you're getting a lot of resistance from the universe, Mars retrograde is not the time to try to muscle your way through something, because the forward moving energy is now in reverse. So it's more a time of retreat rather than time of moving forward. And sorry, I just got distracted a little bit about the by the technology. Okay, I'll come back. So this Mars retrograde period, it starts tomorrow on September 9th, and Mars will be retrograde all the way through November 13th, which means it'll still be retrograde during the election. And I was pretty sure that somebody's going to ask, well, what does that mean for the election? And I'm sorry, I can't really say how that's going to affect the election. But I think it's an interesting kind of coincidence that they're both happening at the same time. So it may be a little bit harder to get things in motion. When Mars goes retrograde about every 2 years, so the last time Mars was retrograde was in the summer of 2018. And when it goes retrograde each time for about 60 to 80 days. So that's a pretty significant period of needing to, like, not necessarily that you have to hold yourself back, but if you notice that it's hard to move forward, that's a good cue for you that don't try to push the river. You know, so you may be having this feeling of like, ready, set, go. And then it's like, no, stop, don't go, stop. So really notice, like, if you're getting green lights or you're getting red lights. I don't mean when you're driving the car, you know, just really notice the energy. I'm sort of assuming that a lot of you on this call, since you know, connect through the shamanic realms, and those of you who are into astrology and any kind of, you know, subtle energy, intuitive work, you know, notice those subtle energies and those messages that you're getting about, am I getting a green light for moving forward, or should I pause? And obviously we've all been on a giant pause, you know, through the pandemic. And though you might be starting to feel kind of antsy, like, I really want to get moving forward, this still might not be the time to move forward. When Mars is moving forward, it's a time when you can be really clear about what's your intention, or you could think about it in terms of what's your desire. And then once you get clear on your intention or your desire, you can put it into action when Mars is going forward. But when Mars is retrograde, it's actually a really good time to focus on, well, what are my intentions? What are my desires? But hold off on the trying to put it into action, because I don't think you're going to have the support of the subtle energies of the universe to do that forward movement. You know, it's not really a great time to initiate a new project. It's more the time to reflect on, what's my plan, what are my intentions, what are my goals, what's really motivating me. So just like when Mercury is retrograde, and that happens 3 times every year. So Mercury retrograde is a lot more frequent, and I think that's why it's more famous for a lot of people. Like, everybody seems to know about Mercury retrograde. Mars retrograde is not so frequently talked about. So when Mercury or Mars or any planet is in retrograde motion, one way to think about what is good about that energy, or what can I apply that energy to, is anything that has the letters R-E at the beginning of the word, like reconsider, revise, reorganize, renew, retreat, refuel. I kind of want to, Leah, if we could, can I kind of throw this out to the group and have people brainstorm on what are some words? Okay.
Sure.
And so how are people going to do that?
If anybody wants to speak up, y'all just unmute yourself and feel free to speak.
Regroup.
Yes.
Regroup.
The word that's coming up for me is respect.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And especially think about it in terms of a fiery, forward-moving energy. Like, how can you take that motivation and drive and energy and turn it into a word?
Remember.
Remember. Great.
Focus.
Refresh.
Yeah. And someone said refocus too. Yeah.
Relax.
Relax. Yes. Great.
Reconstruct.
Yeah.
Restore.
Restore.
Resign.
Resign.
Yeah.
Relate.
What was that?
Relate.
Relate.
Review.
Yes.
Refurbish.
Revisit. Retreat.
Yeah.
Reframe and regenerate.
Yes. Yeah, so you have a couple of months to really reflect on this question about how you can reclaim your power, or any of these other words that we've just brainstormed. They all can apply. And so it's hard to really predict exactly how you personally will experience this Mars retrograde. So again, keep noticing, keep watching for the signs and reading the energies, and notice what messages you're getting about how you could best work with Mars and Aries energy when it's going. Another way to think about it is that it's going inward rather than going outward into action. You're going inward and you're looking at this energy within yourself and reflecting on how am I using this energy. In terms of the nitty-gritty astrology of it, I don't know each of your charts, but if you know something about your chart, I'll let you know that where this retrograde is happening, the part of your chart it'll be moving through is wherever you have the sign of Aries in your birth chart. And obviously, if you wanted to work with me, I'd be happy, to focus in on this Mars retrograde and let you know, we can talk about, how it is affecting you personally. Also, in terms of the nitty-gritty details, right now, Mars is at 28 degrees of Aries, and in its retrograde journey, it's going to go all the way back to 15 degrees. So that's a 13-degree span that it's going to travel between now and November 13th. And then on November 13th, it'll come to a pause and start moving forward again. So then it's going to go back over that same territory. So wherever that territory is in your chart, and especially if you have planets there or any kind of significant aspects of your soul work that's there in Aries, that's where you'll probably feel the strongest influence of this Mars retrograde. And it also may have an effect on the other cardinal signs in your chart. So I'll mention what the 4 cardinal signs are, and those are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And I'm going to screen share and show you the chart, show the chart of tomorrow when Mars turns retrograde. And I know that not all of you, know how to read a chart, and so don't freak out, don't go into overwhelm. I'm gonna just talk briefly about this, and then I'm gonna actually show you a much simplified version of the chart that's easier to look at. But one of the really significant things about this Mars retrograde that's not just true about Mars retrograde in general, but specific to this Mars retrograde, is that, so this is where Mars will be tomorrow when it comes to a stop in the sky. And of course, it doesn't really stop. It just looks like it comes to a stop. And that's what this little S up here means. It stands for station, or it means it's stopping in the sky before it starts going backwards. When a planet that's been in forward motion comes to a stop or a station, we feel its energy even more strongly. So even though Mars will be retrograde for a few months, tomorrow will be an especially strong Mars energy day. And when it comes to that stopping point in the sky, it's going to be making what's called a square, or a 90-degree angle, to Pluto and Saturn. So this is the whole chart where all the planets will be, but now I'm going to show you a simplified version of this. Let's see, I'll new share. So this is the same thing. I just took out the kind of other planets. They're not really superfluous. All the planets are having an influence on us. But I just wanted to really zoom in, laser focus in for now on this relationship between Mars and Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn are all in Capricorn. And it's especially a tight 90-degree angle, or a square, between Mars and Saturn and Pluto. So while Mars by itself, if we weren't really talking about it in relationship to the other planets, Mars by itself is very much about your personal power. And that's why in naming the topic for tonight, I said we'd be reflecting on power, both personal power and beyond the personal. So Mars by itself is about personal power, and how that life force energy, that fire of the life force, how that moves through you as a unique individual, as a unique personality self. Well, it's tied together in a very kind of contentious way with these other planets, which are about governmental power, governmental authority, or authority figures, or anything that has a dominating influence or an authoritarian influence. So what do you think? And again, I'll ask you to, you can unmute yourself and speak if you'd like to. What do you think might happen when people's personal power comes up against this kind of massive power of a system that's bigger than them?
More burning.
Yeah.
Truth will be revealed.
I hope so.
Conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Sparks.
Resistance.
Yes, resistance. Protests. So there may be, again, I can't predict what's going to come up for each of you personally, but you may see it, in people around you or in yourself or on the news, that people are feeling especially irritated or aggravated or angry because of feeling that there's these powers, this powerful force on the outside of them that's not really letting them follow their desires, their own personal desires, or their need for autonomy, or their need to really be a sovereign self. And some people may want to act out that anger, or they may want to be proactive, in some like political way. And other people may feel like, no, I don't want to get into the fray. And then other people might not really be feeling such a strong personal need to assert themselves. So it's very individual how this will be experienced. Obviously, with what we've been going through, with this sense of being locked down and the government, telling us what we can do and what we can't do, there's already been a lot of people who are feeling, irritated or angry or rebellious. Me being one of those people, I'll admit. I have not been really these people who's like, oh yes, I'll just do what we're told to do. I've been really in a lot of resistance, personally. So we've been seeing this already happening, and that creating a lot of division between people. And we may see more of that during the Mars retrograde as well. These energies of Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn, they've been there since the beginning of this year. And a lot of what we've been experiencing on the collective level, on the level of what's happening in our society and the injustices that have been coming to light, and the awakening about, really wanting to fight against these injustices and undo the systems of domination and control. That's been all under the influence of these three planets, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn. So Mars can serve as a trigger, and it is triggering that off. And so the desire to dismantle those systems that have been systems of injustice and power over and holding authority over people, Mars is really like activating or energizing the desire to dismantle those systems and bring them down. Okay, I'm going to pause there.
Would it be, can I ask a question? Is it simplistic, overly simplistic to think of it as, like, I think of Aries as kind of youth, like the little kid or the teenager in the crew. And it almost seems like there's this energy of like a generations kind of in conflict too. Does that seem like that's part of what's going on at all?
It certainly can be, yeah. Mars can relate to youth because, again, it's about like getting things started. So when we're young, we're just getting started with our life. We're getting started with our developmental process. And Capricorn definitely relates to maturity and age and things that can be very traditional and even entrenched. So you're right that it can represent a generational clash. Or friction. You can also think about Mars and Aries as causing friction. And we know that, with friction, you can create fire. And with friction, you can also have irritation and anger and aggravation. It's also reminding me about how Mars and Aries can manifest in the body. Like if that Mars energy is going inward, which is part of what happens during the retrograde motion. Like, for example, if you have unresolved anger, or you've got a lot of anger inside you that needs to move out, but you've been repressing it or holding it in or holding it back, then that fiery energy, when it's repressed in the body, it can come out as things that have to do with heat in the body. So things like a rash or a fever, or just a sense of, irritability and frustration. So if you're noticing that you've got anger that you actually need to express rather than repress, even though Mars is retrograde, you're still going to want to, you can be like reviewing or reconsidering, what am I doing with this angry energy? And maybe it does need to come out, and hopefully in ways that are assertive rather than aggressive. So I did want to pause here and open up for questions.
Yeah, I have a question. As an Aries who's been triggered by all this quite a bit, I find that I've never been so energized in my whole life. And my question is, how do I put a container on that?
So I think it's not about putting a container on it. And I've been noticing lately in a lot of Zoom groups I'm in, people keep talking about holding energy, like, oh, I really, I don't know if I can hold this. Well, sometimes we're not meant to hold energy or contain it. Sometimes we need to let that energy move. So usually when the energy has to do with Mars and or Aries, and right now it's both, it's Mars and Aries, yeah, that fiery energy needs to move. So the question is not so much how do I contain it as how do I direct it in healthy ways. So some healthy ways to move that Mars energy so that it's not hurting you and it's not hurting anyone else are things like doing very vigorous physical activity, exercise. Sex is another really good outlet for the Mars energy. Even solo sex, it doesn't have to be with a partner. And dancing, anything that can let you physically move that energy using your voice. Like say, for example, if you're really angry at the government or at a political figure or your friend or your partner or whoever it is, it might not be wise to like go off on them. I don't recommend that you move the energy by like going off on people. Right. But when you're in the privacy of your own space, maybe you need to get in your car and go somewhere where you can yell and scream, but you can use your voice and you can use your words. And as long as you're not hurting someone else, you can move this energy however you want to. You can pound a pillow. You can stomp around. So does that answer, or do you have a follow-up question on that, Carol?
Well, I find the way it's manifesting right now is I want to fix the entire world situation all in one day if I can. So, and I understand, the dynamics of it, but it just tickles me to realize that, here it is, it's right in a chart, and I can identify it now. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like anything else, it's always one step at a time, one day at a time. Yeah, we're not going to change all these systems in an Aries kind of a flash, but that flash of the Aries energy can get you into motion with that first step or that first action, and maybe the question is like, what can I do? And what do I want to do? And what's the first thing to do? Like, what's the first next action?
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wonder if you might speak to the event North Node in 5th house, South Node in 11th house. Did I see that on the event chart?
So the houses, for those of you who don't know about what the houses are, I'm not going to go deep into, giving you a lot of astrology information, but the houses are these sections of the chart. And was that Celia asking the question?
This is Kirsten, sorry.
Oh, Kirsten, sorry. So Kirsten was asking about, she noticed that the nodes of the moon, which are represented by these horseshoe-shaped symbols, she was asking me about, well, what does it mean that they're in the 11th house and the 5th house? Well, that question only applies to this chart that was cast for Taos, New Mexico. The houses are dependent on where you cast the chart for, like what location on the planet. So this is the chart I cast it for the moment that Mars stations retrograde in Taos, New Mexico.
Okay.
But what I will say about the nodes of the moon is whatever time zone you're in or wherever you are on the planet, they are in the signs of Sagittarius, which is this one, the south nodes in Sag, the north nodes in Gemini. And this is where the eclipses will be happening in November and December, and then next year in May and June in the signs of Sag and Gemini. And how it relates to this Mars retrograde station, the station of Mars retrograde, is that Sagittarius is one of the other fire signs. And it's in what's called a trine relationship to Mars tomorrow at the station of Mars retrograde. So the Mars energy will be very much connected to the Sagittarian energy. And what you'll have to watch out for with that is that Sagittarius fire can be very opinionated and like, I'm right. My perspective is the right perspective. Raise your hand if you've been noticing that in anybody or in yourself lately. There's a lot of that going around. So the South Node went into Sagittarius earlier this year, and we've seen a lot of opinionatedness and divisiveness around opinions. Well, the Mars can trigger that off tomorrow when it stations to go retrograde, because it's almost an exact trine. When things are in a trine relationship, their energies flow together and support or emphasize each other. Hopefully you'll all want to, if you're not on my newsletter list already, hopefully you'll want to get on my newsletter list, and you can do that by emailing me. And just to remind you that my email address is in the chat. So in the next newsletter, which is going to be the newsletter for the Virgo new moon on September 17th, is going to integrate some of this information about the Sagittarius and the Gemini energies of the nodes. And I do it in a way that's an allegory and using like animal spirit medicines to represent these archetypal energies. So the nodes of the moon are very important to what's going on for us on the collective level. Like even if that's not where you have your nodes of the moon, we're all being very much affected by this kind of opinionatedness and divisiveness over different points of view or different perspectives.
Sajit, this is Nancy in Denver. Hi, I just love it, and I'm sorry I was a little late. That 5 o'clock time just kind of slipped away. I have a question. My moon is in Aries. I don't know anybody else's moon that's in Aries on this call so far. And my Mars is in my second house. And I've noticed everything that you have said about this coming events is true. Irritability, anger, all of this stuff is coming up. And it's, and it's been very, very difficult to meditate. And that's what really is been my thing, but I also believe in all the exercise that you mentioned. So do you have any kind of suggestions for that configuration, Aries moon and Mars second house?
Yeah.
Oh God. And
yes.
Libra, sun.
So without going into too much detail that's real specific to you, what I'll say is that, because you have an Aries moon, the Aries energy is always an important energy for you to be working with in a more and more conscious way, or like evolving with that energy. And so yes, when anything happens with Mars in the sky, it's going to really bring up your own moon in Aries energy. So with the moon in Aries, there oftentimes are issues with anger. So if you're feeling irritable, if you're feeling frustrated, there may be some important things for you to look at, Nancy, about like, what are you angry about? And it might be old anger, and it might be past life anger, because the moon in your birth chart, so this is kind of for everybody to understand that the moon in your birth chart holds emotional energy, unresolved emotional energy from other lifetimes.
Yeah.
So some of what you're feeling might not even be current, Nancy. It might be old, but it's still an energy that needs to get paid attention to, and it needs to move through you. And one practice that I thought of to share with all of you, especially from what you said, Nancy, about it being hard to meditate right now, you know, because of all of this Mars energy moving, the Mars and Aries energy moving, is that there's a type of moving meditation that can be really helpful when it's hard to sit still. And that's something that's called the 5 rhythms. And we don't have time tonight for me to take you through all of the 5 rhythms, but you can find it online. I'm sure you can go to YouTube and find it.
I know about it. I had not, yeah. Because you know I like to dance.
So the 5 rhythms are really 5 qualities of movement. And the second rhythm, which is called staccato, is a very Mars and Aries quality. So if we think about things in terms of yin and yang qualities, Mars and Aries are very yang. And so yang movements, or yang, however it's pronounced, are very direct, they're penetrating, they can be fast or quick, changeable. And so those kinds of movements, kind of like karate chop movements. So rather than like Tai Chi, this would be the flow, quality of flow, which is the first movement in the 5 rhythms. But the second one is when you're stomping or you're punching or you're kicking. And those are great ways to safely move this Mars in Aries energy.
Oh, great. Thank you. I love that. I've been feeling the need to do that. It's funny you said that.
And the great thing about if you do the whole wave of the 5 rhythms, all 5 of those qualities, it takes you through a process, a movement experience, I'd rather say, a movement experience that helps you move your energies in ways that are both, you know, grounding and calming and centering and energizing at the same time, so that you can really focus and get work done afterwards. Like when I was in my master's degree program working on my master's thesis, I'd get like so antsy, like every day before I'd sit down at the computer, I'd be like all irritable, and I'd have all these like thoughts in my head and be like, oh, I can't focus, I don't think I can do this, I'm never gonna get through my thesis, oh my God. But I would do the 5 rhythms for about 20 minutes. So I'd go through each of the 5, within the 20 minutes, I'd go through each of the 5 rhythms. And after doing those 5 qualities of movement, I was ready to sit down and be focused. And I had the energy to do my work, but I didn't have a frenetic kind of like nervous energy.
Yeah.
I'll take one more question and then I'll actually lead you all through a movement experience. So one more question for now. If there is one more question.
I got one.
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
Well, since we were talking about houses, mine, Jupiter and Venus are in Aries in the 2nd house.
So do you really want me to talk about your sex life here on Zoom?
Sure, go right ahead. Because hopefully there would be a partner coming down the pike sometime soon. Then.
Yeah. So the sign of Aries and the planet Mars can relate to one's libido, which is a fiery kind of energy. And also it's about our sense of desire and passion and the power to really go after what we're passionate about. When you have Venus in Aries, there's an attraction to, for you, Corey, are you heterosexual, if I can ask?
Yes.
So an attraction to women who carry that fiery Mars energy And then Jupiter expands on that. So in general, you'd be someone who I would think would have a very, strong, fiery, passionate nature, and really enjoy connecting with women in that fiery, passionate way, and even like playing around with things like wrestling and some like healthy kind of competition, or doing sports together and competing against somebody else, like couples tennis, or whatever that's called, pairs or whatever in tennis. But joining your forces together to do something that's very active and kind of challenging yourselves. When Mars is retrograde in Aries and maybe going across your Venus and your Jupiter, I don't know exactly where your Venus and Jupiter are by degree, and you don't need to tell me because I don't want to go to that level of fine detail here. But when Mars is going retrograde in Aries across or near those planets for you, it's not so much a time for you to like be out there trying to like meet a new partner. It'll be more a time for you to reflect, to go inward and think about what's really important for me in a partnership. What kind of a woman do I really want to be with? What really does turn me on? And by this stage of your life, you've probably seen like what doesn't work for you. That maybe in the past there's been a certain type of women you've been super attracted to, and maybe it didn't turn out so well. So again, the reflecting back on what's your love life been like? What's your relationship life been like? And how might you want to redo that? Both renew it or redesign it or re-something your sex life, your relationship life. And I'll leave it there for now. So
Thank
Leah,
you very much.
You're welcome. Leah, we're at the top of the hour. I'm feeling rared up and ready to go longer. But I want to see what you're thinking about.
Oh yeah, we always go to at least 8. Usually we always go to at least 8:15 to 8:30. And
Okay.
and if anybody has to leave before we're complete, feel free. But if not, just stay on and enjoy this. This is fun. I love it.
Good. Okay. So now I want us to get into our bodies, and we're going to do a little imagination exercise that connects us with our bodies. If you don't feel comfortable being seen by the group, because I'm going to be asking you to, you don't necessarily have to get up out of your chair and move. You can if you want to. You're totally free to get up and move through your space if you want to. But even if you just feel like this is very private for you and you don't really want to be witnessed by the group while you're doing these movements, even in your chair, I'll just leave that up to you whether or not you want to, you could always stop your video for a while if you want to. So I want you to do what's comfortable for you. Do what's comfortable for your body, what's comfortable for your personality, for your emotions. So take care of yourselves. So we're going to do a little exploration. And what I want you to imagine, and you might want to close your eyes for this, is we're going to do some playing around with opposite emotions or opposite kinds of experiences that relate to Mars and Aries. So the first one that I want you to kind of try on in your body is imagine if you were feeling really courageous right now, what kind of a movement or a gesture or a stance would you make? How would you move your body if you were feeling really courageous right now? So go for it. I feel really courageous. And you can also like get ideas from other people if you want to, see what other people are doing. Like I saw Leah like really like, rah, raise her arm up there, or somebody did that. Okay, so now I want you to imagine that you're feeling very fearful. And how would your body move and express that feeling of fear? And notice what that feels like in your body. compared to that feeling of courage or that courage movement. And take a breath and let that go, let the fear go. And the next one we'll try is imagine that you're getting very aggressive. You know, like you're angry and you're just like out of, maybe you've never done this, but like out of control, aggressive. Or you might imagine like a 4-year-old having a temper tantrum, like just like, and there is no restraint. You're not trying to hold yourself back, and you don't care if you hurt somebody or not, but I don't want you to hurt yourself while you do this. But really aggressive. And if you want to make sound with it, you can make sound with it. Okay, and you can let that go. Take a breath, take a few breaths. I actually feel the heat came up in my body with that. I got really warm. Now imagine that rather than being aggressive, you're feeling assertive. Like you know what you need and you're speaking to your needs, you're standing in your truth. You feel empowered, but you're not aggressing on anyone. You're really centered in yourself with your assertion. You might notice that you feel really connected to the earth, rooted. No one's going to push you around, and you're not pushing anyone else around. Okay, and then let that go. I think we'll do one more. So imagine that you're feeling really powerless, and how would you express that through your body? Yeah, I noticed like a sense of like collapse. Notice what happens with your breathing, with this feeling of powerlessness. What's happening in your spine, what's happening in your heart area. And then let that go and take a few breaths. Shake it off if you need to shake it off. And then for this last one, I want you to embody a feeling of power. And one really great one that I like to do, I guess I don't have room where I am right now to do it, but like the warrior pose in yoga, that asana is a great one. So embodying a sense of power. Notice your breath. How is it moving in your body? Notice your sense of grounding or lack of grounding. How's your spine? What's the orientation of your spine? How do you feel in your heart area, in your belly, your solar plexus, that feeling of power? And then you can let that go, take a few breaths. Let your breath come back to its normal rhythm, your energy back to its normal flow. And I do invite you, if you turned off your video, to turn it back on if you want to, so we can all see each other again. And I'd love to open it up for any kind of comments about what really stood out for you. What did you notice in those experiences of those contrasts, of those opposites?
if you'd like to speak, just take your mute off.
You truly feel the energetic difference with each one. Solar plexus, you know, and the strengthening, and then the weaker parts. I felt it really mostly through my whole body.
Are you saying that the weaker stuff you felt through your whole body?
Yeah. And the empowered ones was definitely grounded, solar plexus, you know, centered, aligned. Yeah.
Cumulatively, I felt energized.
Yeah.
It really, parts of it, even though we were imagining something that was less powerful, whatever, I found to be energizing as well, because it brought me to self-reflection. So I don't know, I feel like I could stay awake for a long time.
I can really
I'm present
relate
to.
Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Say my name if it's my turn.
Amy, go ahead, Amy.
Amy, go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. I guess I was just present to our humanity, our shared humanity. Just this reminder that that when I see someone going like this or in the warrior pose, that I might know a little bit about how they feel. That we share that, and yeah. So I'm just sitting with that profound. Thank you again for bringing the embodiment piece.
You're welcome.
And who was next that wanted to speak?
It's me.
There you are.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sajit. So nice to see you. I was just going to say with the gentleman before, I couldn't really think of how to verbalize it, but the word reflection that he said actually was so accurate, because I felt a sense of like, I have control over this, even in the moments where I'm weak or strong. It's not beyond my sphere of being reflective of myself. And, you know, I also am an Aries moon, for the woman who is speaking about that. And as I've learned, you can have such knee-jerk reactions, such instinctual, like get angry right away. But I've learned to, you know, be reflective about that and not give into that like I used to. Anyway, just that's how it kind of spoke to me personally. So.
Anybody else? Well, I want to reflect. I usually don't chime in on this, but I'm going to chime in. One thing that was really interesting for me, and because I've had to work through the guilt. I felt really empowered during this whole time because of the work that I've done, the medicine work. It's like we've been hearing these teachings for years in our journeys that this time was coming. And so for me, I'm 64 years old. I never thought I would see it. So I'm like going, man, this is why we've been doing all this work. Let's go do it. And but then when we were doing when we were doing like the disempowered stances, I could go there, but then, and I could feel what that feels like, but then recognize that I don't feel disempowered at all. Like, you know, so it was an interesting experience to be able to feel that disempowerment, but not be disempowered, I guess. Maybe that's the way to put it. So I love that. That was great.
My hope is that by doing this kind of even short experiential that we've just done, that it will help you to be more aware, not just during the Mars retrograde, but, you know, in your life in general, to notice, you know, when you're feeling the empowerment in your body and when you're feeling a sense of disempowerment or powerlessness or fear in your body, because our bodies can be such great, you know, give us the cues about what's really going on inside of us. And while Mars is retrograde and we're reflecting, you know, we can really especially be paying attention to, am I feeling empowered or disempowered, and what do I want to do about that? You know, is there something that I'm wanting to change? You know, am I wanting to get stronger in my body? Am I wanting to be more socially or politically active? Am I needing to back off of something and let someone else take the lead for a while? And I have on the handout like a whole list of questions that you might want to reflect on during the Mars retrograde. And I think that when you're, you know, doing a process of inquiry with yourself, like starting with a question for yourself about what's going on for you with the Mars energy, your body can help you find the answers to those questions. You know, whether you're needing to get more activated, or you're needing to be more kind of calm down, or more on retreat. And your body, I think, can help you to know, or also to help you like, well, what needs to get strengthened within you? Maybe you need to work on, you know, opening up your solar plexus. Maybe you need to be doing more warrior poses. Maybe you need to be lifting weights, you know, or maybe you've been too like yang, your energy's been too outwardly moving, and maybe you're needing to do more of the relax, which I think was Joe's word, you know. So it's going to be unique for each of us, and that's why it's important to be in inquiry and in process and reflection with yourself, rather than be trying to like read about or hear like what are people saying that you'd experienced during Mars retrograde. It's going to be your own experience, and your body can help you to know what you're feeling and what you're needing. So both Mars and Aries, because they're about the self and what's your intention and your motivation and your desire, it's crucial that you are in tune with or knowing about, what do I need? What do I want? And sometimes that's, you know, people know that right away, and sometimes you don't always know right away what you're needing or what you're wanting. I did a wonderful exercise in a workshop. Lee, you were there at the workshop, where we got into pairs. And so this is something you could do with a friend or a partner, or, you know, a lover or a spouse, where the two of you sit down and one person asks the other person, what do you want? So like, say if I was doing this with Leah, I would ask, can we do this a little bit, Leah? Would you be willing to?
Sure.
Okay. So it's not just a one, I'm not going to just ask you one time, what do you want? I'm going to ask you a few times. Okay. So Leah, what do you want?
Oh God. Deep connection.
Leah, what do you want?
Oh, deep intimacy.
Leah, what do you want?
Love.
And I'll pause there. So you can go on for a while, and it's amazing how, you know, the layers kind of go deeper and deeper, and things that you might not have realized right away that you were wanting will emerge for you. And then you can switch roles, and then you ask the other person, what do they want? And you can do it for as long as you want to. I'm not going to give you a prescribed amount of time. But that would be a really good game to play during the Mars retrograde, because it's a good time to reflect or look at, what do I really want? And also looking at, what do I really need? And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the want and the need. And then the next step, after recognizing what you need and what you want, is deciding how you want to go after that. So while Mars is retrograde, it's not the time to put that need and that want into action, but just to start thinking about, like, okay, I've been really wanting more, you know, I'll use one of those examples from Leah, you know, I've been really wanting more intimacy, and maybe the Mars retrograde isn't the time to be out there you know, on the dating scene, looking for a new partner, or even, you know, talking to my partner about, oh, I want more intimacy. Maybe it's a time to just kind of let that energy, that desire build within you during the Mars retrograde, and then have a clarity about when Mars goes direct in November. How do you want to take action on those needs and those wants and those desires? But first you need to know what they are and get clear what they are. So I think Mars retrograde is great for that time to get clear by going within ourselves and asking those questions. So I want to make sure that I talk about transpersonal power, or the power beyond the personal. So tonight we're looking at or reflecting on 3 aspects of power. The first one we looked at, and we've been really weaving it in a lot of ways, is looking at our personal power. So the what do I need, what do I want, and how am I going to go after it? That has to do with your own personal power. Then we talked about how the Mars making the square or the right angle to Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn is the personal power coming up against this larger force or this larger power of the government or people who are in power. And we currently live in, when we're in the 3rd dimension, we are in a power over paradigm. So it's kind of easy to talk about the patriarchy and be angry about the patriarchy. When you get down to the root of it, what's really the root of our problem, because there also at one point was matriarchy where the women were holding power over the men. So what's really at the root is using power over other people, whether it's men using it over women, whether it's white people using it over black people. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, it matters. Black lives matter, and all these injustices do matter. But what I'm saying is that the root of all of it, whatever specific issue you look at, where there's an injustice, where there's harm being done, where there's a sense of inequality, is because we live in a paradigm where power is used over other people, where power is seen as something that some have and some don't have, where power is seen as being something that's in limited, like a limited resource, that there's only so much to go around, and so people grab for that power and then try to hold on to that power, which relates to the hoarding of resources, because if you have resources, you have power. All of those ways of looking at power and using power over others, that is distorted power. And so what I want to talk about next is what I believe is true power. So in that dynamic of the personal power coming up against the force of the governmental power, that happens in a power over paradigm. If we were not in a power over paradigm, we wouldn't have to come up against some kind of force that was trying to hold authority or holding power over us. True power is unlimited, and it is shared equally. It is not held by some and held away from others. It is something that we all have equal access to, and it also is a power that cannot be used to do harm. I'm going to bring up a couple other images to illustrate this. So the kind of power I'm talking about now is transpersonal power, or power that's beyond the personal, which means that it's connected to the divine. It's not about the power over the powers that be, it's the power of the divine. Oops, this is not the one I wanted to show first. This is the image I wanted to share first. So what I'm trying to show here, can you see my cursor moving?
Mm-hmm.
So this circle of divine love, it's really completely unlimited. It's not bound by a circle. I'm just using kind of a graphic image of a circle to show that divine love, which is unlimited and available to all of us equally, and it is eternal. Divine love embraces or includes, I'm going to talk about these three facets. We could say the divine love has many, many facets to it. You could talk about beauty. But right now I'm using this kind of simplified image of a triangle, and these three facets that I think are very important facets of divine love. Oftentimes I think, especially those of us who are very spiritually oriented, think of divine love as being related to wisdom and compassion. And I know that in Buddhism, they talk very often about wisdom and compassion. Power is something that a lot of us who have been on the spiritual path tend to be less comfortable with. But that's only because we've been living in a power over paradigm where power has been used to hurt people, where power has been used to hurt us, or where we've hurt other people through power. But when we're looking at power as a facet of divine love, this kind of power is never used over anyone. It's never used for harm. And in fact, it can't even be used for harm. It's impossible to use true power to hurt anyone. So I think it's important to begin to embrace and welcome power as a very important facet of love. Power is not separate from love. It's included within divine love. It's part of divine love. It's a facet of divine love. And I think that we're all being asked to reintegrate with that or welcome that back in, rather than, rejecting it or pushing it outside of ourselves and saying, oh, well, I don't really want to relate to power because power's bad. No, power over is bad. Power over is harmful. But this kind of, what I'm calling this is true power rather than distorted power. So now the next circle we're going to look at is looking at the circle of power and three facets of power, true power or transpersonal power. So this kind of true power that's a facet of divine love is the power of creation, or the power to create, the power to transform, and the power to sustain. Or maybe we should go this way, the power to create and then sustain and then transform. And if you're familiar with the Hindu system, I can't remember because I'm not really deeply steeped in Hinduism, but they have a threefold way of thinking about the divine. And it's the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer. Which again, I don't know if someone else wants to chime in, if someone knows the names of those gods in Hinduism. And then in astrology, we have the three modalities, which are cardinal, which has to do with creating or initiating something, the fixed signs sustain things, and then the mutable signs transform. So this kind of power to create, sustain, and transform, we can find this in various systems of understanding kind of the divine reality or how things work in the, we could say in the 5D realm. I think the power over is in 3D, and from what I understand, it also can show up in 4D. But in 5D, that's where unity, that's where we experience unity. And so this true power that is shared equally is only accessed when we are in unity consciousness. So first we need to know our true identity, our Christ self or our unity consciousness self. And then when we're living in that Christ consciousness or unity consciousness, that's when we're able to merge with or access this true power that is available equally to all, that is unlimited. and cannot be used for harm. So I know that this might be new information, and it's actually new for me. Maybe it's not new for some of y'all, but it's really kind of new for me, and I'd love to hear questions or comments or reflections on what I just shared about what I'm calling true power and shared power.
Sajit, I have a question and a comment. I have been working with a meditation that's very much similar to this, is integrating these three concepts in ourselves, in our bodies, in our mind, and our souls. What confuses me, and I haven't talked to anyone about this before, is how we separate when we want to control versus how we feel powerful. A lot of times I feel powerful by silence or by not reacting. And I've really worked on, just accepting. And so what I'm finding though is that the control issues are confusing. Am I I want to control, I like to control COVID, but I can't. I mean, so it's this kind of thing that's confusing to me with power and control. I don't know how to say it better.
So my first response was in my body as I was listening to you.
Yes.
And for me, what I notice is that when I'm feeling a need to control, there's usually constriction in my body. There's contraction that goes on. Does that make sense? I mean, can you relate to that in your body?
Yes, I can. I can, well, yeah, I do a lot of yoga too. So, I mean, to keep from being too constricted. I can relate to that because the constriction, it comes in the middle of my back. My neck and my back, I feel it. Are you having thunder there? We're having.
Oh my God, lightning really close, just hit really close. If
I
just hear, you'll know why.
In Denver, it's snowing. Yesterday it was 100, so it's fun. But anyway, it's snowing out there. So I guess that what I'm thinking is that the constriction would be, when I feel constriction in my body, that would be when I have a control conflict, because I've been really aware of how much I love to control. I really do. I mean, I hate uncertainty, and we're living in the time of uncertainty. And I realize that's my lesson right now, is that we have to wake up to the fact that the moment is all we've got and all of that. And I've been working on this, but the control thing keeps coming up, and I get the Mars, which you said is the Mars really makes sense, because I've been feeling this anger, and I don't really have a whole lot to be angry about. I mean, everybody has something, like confinement and all that, but I mean, this is not, I've been working and doing things, and so it's not, there's so many other things to be angry about. So this control, I want to control this, and I get mad about it. And it does feel constriction, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that using our bodies can help us to make those kind of fine distinctions, or be discerning about, am I being in control in a healthy way, which, like, in terms of like this fiery energy of Mars and Aries, sometimes you might need to channel it. That's not trying to control it or hold it back, but it's a constructive use of it. But if you're feeling like you're trying to control something, there's usually constriction or tension, or if you're noticing that you're trying to push through something and there's a lot of resistance. Like, Nancy, you missed my example in the beginning, but I was saying I was trying to plan this camping trip, and then the weather is what the weather is and is not conducive to camping. And I was trying to push through and still figure out some way to go on a camping trip, but I was just getting red lights everywhere I looked. It just was not, I couldn't find a plan that was going to work with the weather and with my time constrictions of my calendar. But I was like, in my body, I felt this sense of pushing. I was trying to push through the restrictions
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually an uncomfortable feeling in our body if we're feeling like we're trying to control something that we can't control, or we're trying to push through something that we can't push through, or we're trying to resist something. So those feelings of resistance and control and the push, see if you can notice what that feels like when it's coming up in your body, and then ask your body, like, what do I need to do instead?
I know how it feels. I just never know. I know how it feels. I know exactly what you're saying. I just never know how to, I get lost in the lower, the lower control energies. And I can, when I'm talking to you and I'm listening to others, I think, oh my gosh, of course, move, stop, but when I'm in it, I can't get out of it. No, maybe now I can, because it's kind of the awareness of constriction, but
I think it's the awareness is the key.
Yeah.
The awareness and then the willingness to make a shift.
Yeah. It's overwhelming, but I think it's partly the energies, but yeah, that's the willingness to make the shift. So you would make the shift by movement, I haven't tried that yet. Walking that's because
sometimes the movement needs to be vigorous to move the energy through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Other times, if you're dealing with a lot of contraction or restriction or constriction, then maybe you need to do something that's more relaxing and more like stretching and opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you finished?
Oh, Nancy? Yeah, I finished. I took too much. Thank you, Cecilia, for taking it.
Well, one more thing, Sajit. Answer any more questions, and then let's just we're probably going to have to, because we're losing some people here, and so then we'll just tie it up for the night.
Sounds good.
Okay, go ahead, Camille.
Yeah, Camille.
It's really, really very good, and I'm hoping that I can, Sajit, find your information. I can't access the chat, so maybe I can get that from Leah.
Well, I'm going to send what I've decided to do, because I'm going to send out emails to everybody with her connection or her information and offering.
Okay, because what you were saying really spoke to me, so I will contact you later. But just this one question of the power, the interesting aspect to me of power, and that circle and triangle. I actually use that emblem a lot in different things, and so that spoke to me anyway. But the idea of that sustaining and creating and transforming, and how that's a circle, really really spoke to me. That was really good. And at this very moment, I seem not to have the power to get done the things I need to get done. So like I got up early this morning and didn't get anything done. So do you think that's about constricting? Do you think that's about something else?
It's Mars retrograde. So the kind of power you're talking about, the power to get things done, or the energy to get things done, that's the personal power. That's not the transpersonal. That's the personal power, which we need that as well. And when Mars is retrograde, you may not have as much access to that kind of energy to get things done. In fact, when we were in the green room waiting, before the call, Leah was giving that very similar example of feeling that today too. So give yourself a break. Maybe during Mars retrograde for the next couple of months, you're not going to be able to get as much done.
Well, there's some things I need to get done, ask Leah.
So you might need to prioritize, you might need to really be more specific with your prioritization, because maybe you can't get it all done, or maybe you can't do as much as you're used to being able to do in a day. And I think that if you try to push too hard during a time that's not a time to be pushing, then it can really affect your physical health in a negative way.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. Thank you.
So I want to share again before we wrap up that if you, and so Leah's going to send you all my contact information, my email, and my website. So if you're interested in the special offer, which is, it's about 20% off of various services of mine. So I do astrology consultations, and I also do something that's called the soul map, which is the map of your unique soul journey. And it's literally a map. It's an illustration of your soul's journey. So the special offer gives you 20% off of either some astrology work with me or the soul map with me. And then all you'll need to do to get that special offer is email me, and in the subject line, just write Sacred Fire. And that will be kind of like your, not a coupon. I'm not going to send out a physical coupon or even an email coupon, but I'll put your name on the list of people who said that they want the special offer, that want the 20% off. So you'll get the 20% off, you'll get the handout from tonight, and also you'll get my newsletter. So those are the three things you'll get if you send me an email with Sacred Fire in the subject line.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll put that also in
everybody.
the email I'll send out, so you won't you'll know what to do.
Okay, good. Okay, so to wrap up, what I'd like to do, just a really quick somatic thing, which is put your screen on gallery view so that we can see each other. And if you've got your camera off, I'd love if you'd put your camera on just for the ending, your video. I mean, if you can't or you really don't want to be seen, you don't have to, but I'd appreciate it if you can and you're willing. So what I want to imagine is that even though as you look at this screen in front of you, you see each of us like in a box, I want you to imagine that we're actually in a circle, and we're in a circle around the fire. And in that fire is the energy of Mars and Aries. So take a moment to close your eyes and visualize that we're all in a circle around the fire, and that you're looking at the fire, you see the flames, you can feel the heat, the warmth, you see the movement of the flames as they move upwards, and there's the different colors in the flames, red, and yellow, and white, and maybe blue or purple. Really sense into the energy of that fire that's there in the center of us, the center of our circle. And know that you can draw on the energy of this central fire as we enter and pass through this Mars retrograde period. Trusting that you can tune into your body and do these reflection questions for yourself of how best to work with the Mars retrograde energy, how it can help you and support you and inform you, that you can draw on this fire energy as you need it in the months ahead. And then I'd like you to open your eyes and put your hands out so that you touch like the edges of the box that you're in, so that we can touch each other. So Lindy, put your hands all the way to the edge of your box. Yeah, there you go. So that we can touch hand to hand in virtual reality. Yeah. So we are connected. We are a circle. And we can tap into the transpersonal power, the power of divine love, the power of oneness, the power of unity consciousness is always available to us. And thank you all for your presence tonight.
That was great. I've been wanting to do the standing around the fire holding hands. I keep sensing we really did it. We touched. That's great. That was beautiful. Sajit, stay on while I close and tell everybody good night. And thank you all for gathering and coming in to
Can I say something, Lee?
Yeah.
I want to say how beautiful the Golden Thread site is and put a plug in for that beautiful thing. I had everything ready to buy and, so we could donate, and it was beautiful. Then I couldn't find my credit card, but I'm going to do it tonight.
Okay.
Purchases. That it's absolutely amazing, and that's such a great thing. I don't know if you're the one that's connecting that, but it's just amazing.
Well, thank you. It was actually a Golden Threads was a download that I received in Peru at a sacred mountain, and 2017, and I switched the gears and the focus, of course, during this COVID, during this work, and what we're doing around the fire. So thank you. I
love it. I love it.
I love the website myself too. Thank you.
I love it. Well, thank you for connecting us to it, because it's such a gift to these women and such a gift to us too.
Yes, well, thank you. And feel free to go in under the teachings, and all the other teachers, all the videos are up there too. So feel free to go look.
Oh, thank you so much. I was on my phone and it was not a good idea to do that on the phone. So I'm going to do it on the computer tonight.
Well, I'm glad y'all came. I really am. Thank you. Thank you. And y'all are on my email list now. And if anytime you don't want to get the emails for what I'm doing, just let me know. But now you're going to start getting announcements about other gatherings and how we're gathering around the fire and who's going to be teaching.
Well, Sajit, have her back. I love her.
I do too. I love her too.
Come back to Denver and Boulder. Maristella, Sajit. I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Y'all have a good evening.
Good night.
Stay safe,
Good night, everybody.
Stay safe, everybody. Let's see. Here we go. Hold on. Got a couple.
Bye, Linda. Bye, Peg.
I don't know how to. There's a way. I did it the other week. Hold on. I'm going to stop the recording. I always have to